Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this session. I think now it's good. So thank you very much for joining this session. And just before we start, because I see here some familiar faces, I would like to get a little bit of a feel. How many of you have heard about the Infostealer malware? Please raise a hand. Don't be shy. Maybe you bumped into this topic during your work or any news. All right. We're doing not bad at all. It's a good start. So today, I would like to take you on a journey to the cybercrime underground, where the Infostealing malware was developed with a one and single purpose: to infect as many computers as possible, later to steal from them all the critical information. And among over 31 millions of compromised computers infected by this malware, you can find a variety of the victims. It can be a compromised employee, it can be an unsuspecting individual, and it even can be a government official. But what if I told you that some of those machines, they actually belong to the cybercriminals themselves? Because maybe by the accident, the cybercriminal infected his device, and this is open for us a very rare opportunity to understand what's going on there under the hood. What are the real names? What kind of third-party services they're using for their malicious activity? And even what kind of passwords they've chosen for their accounts. Because the threat actors, they make mistakes, and they make mistakes because they're humans. What humans tend to do? Humans tend to make mistakes. So, I would like to continue and start with the basic for today. And one of my main purposes here that you will understand and take from this presentation, that any kind of data that is on a daily basis is used for defensive purposes. You can also use for the investigation purposes. You just need to shed the light a little bit from the different angle. So my name is Leonid, and I'm coming all the way from Tel Aviv, Israel, to speak with you here about how we at Hudson Rock managed to de-anonymize threat actors and expose their infrastructure using the Infostealer intelligence. So let's go. As I like to say, on the chef menu for today, we're definitely going to speak about the Infostealers. I will start with the basics, because I would like that everybody here will understand what exactly this malware is doing, what exactly this malware is stealing from the computer, because this is going to be also the baseline for what kind of data set we use for our investigation. Speaking about the investigations, we're going to cover two cases today. Last Citrix, it's going to be the case when we use only a single username of a threat actor as an input, and basically managed to develop it from full A to Z investigation. And the second example is going to be about the second eye solution, a real cybercrime enterprise. But here it's going to be a little bit different, because we used already data available about this group, and we just managed to enrich it with much more intelligence using the Infostealer data. Last but not least, I like to close my sessions with the educational content, because I really believe if I'll share with you some tips and tricks how you can be safe and at least prevent one next Infostealer infection, it will make my day. So without further ado, let's start with the basics. As you can understand, as the name Infostealer suggests, this is the malware that knows how to locate and exfiltrate sensitive information. So probably right now you'll ask yourself what exactly this sensitive information is. I'm pretty sure that all of you are familiar with this window when you create a new account and then the browser asks you this magic question: would you like to store your credentials? And all of us are human beings, and all of us like the convenience that everything is really be in one place. And we say yes. Why no? What can go wrong? And unfortunately, a lot of things can go wrong from this point, because the Infostealers at stage number 1 will steal all the data from the browser. And I'm speaking about the passwords, the autofills, the cookies, credit card information. Again, everything that can be stored inside the browser will be sent to the attacker. And stage number 2, Infostealers will do some kind of scan of the infected device to find if there is any kind of additional interesting files or any crypto related information that can be also sent to the attacker. So when the bad guys, they manage to put their hands on this kind of data, it will look something like that. Everything is really nicely organized in the files and in the folders. And believe me, I can stay here until tomorrow and speak with you about those files and those folders. But meanwhile, let's take a look on this data from a little bit, not from cybersecurity perspective, but from the investigations perspective. What we can find in the autofills. In the autofills, we technically can find unlimited kind of data. It can be a first name, last name, physical address, zip code, phone number, country. Again, all the fields that ever can be stored inside the browser, we will find them here. In the cookies, very interesting folder, because here we're going to find all the cookies stored on the infected computer. Basically, we can learn about the browsing history of the person behind this data. And in the user agent folder, we can find a more technical information, the IP address, operational system, what kind of software was used on this infected computer. But this is nothing compared what you can find in the password file, because in the password file, you can find all the credentials stolen from the browser. And unfortunately, there is tens of thousands of those infections per day. And if we'll take an example of a typical victim, I'm speaking about somebody that maybe downloaded a crack or some kind of hacked Photoshop and exposed his credentials. We will find something like that. And again, what people store inside the browser, people store their entire digital life. It can be access to their bank account, social media account, maybe remote access to their workplace, and much more. As you can understand, we cannot show here real data of somebody else, but the last one with the hudsonrock.com domain, this is exactly how the threat actors see the data. There is a clear correlation between the URL, username, and the password. But as I said, this is a typical victim. But one day, at Hudson Rock, we discovered something a little bit different. We discovered that instead of personal accounts, all the Infostealer log contains cybercrime accounts, access to 2 major Russian language dark web forums, Exploit and XSS, access to place where you can buy stolen credit cards, Elon Money. It's not an advice, yes? And access to the dark web market where you can buy any kind of drugs, a Bacchus market. And it was some kind of moment that we said, wait. Because the victim here behind this data is not a typical victim. Because not a typical person should not have any kind of access to those kind of places. And we said the victim here is the threat actor. So it was some kind of ignition point that we understood that threat actors, they infect their own computers by this malware and expose their own credentials. And we said, if we manage to find one, let's do a little bit more effort to find another one. So we started to dig in our repository that contains data from over 31 million of compromised computers. And by the way, back in the days, I'm speaking about maybe 2018 or 19, I believe that this research was not so possible because we were speaking about 135K infections per year. But today we're speaking about those numbers per week. So we started to dig in. And what do you think we discovered? We didn't find 2, and even not 5, and even not 47. We discovered thousands of computers that can be clearly associated with the cybercriminals, thousands of infected computers that has evidence of access to different kinds of cybercrime sources, underground markets, and much more. So unfortunately, we don't have time today to speak about all those thousands of cases, but I pick up for you 2 interesting examples that without further ado, let's finish with the intro and begin with the first case. So ladies and gents, please meet La Citrix. La Citrix was a prominent Russian language threat actor. He is active on the Exploit forum. And La Citrix was also an initial access broker. And just to make sure that we are aligned on the same page, initial access broker has a very important role in the cybercrime chain. He's the one that brings the lead. He's the one that basically opens a gate to a compromised company. And he's doing that by selling remote compromised access on such kind of forums. This is the example of LastCitrix activity on the exploit forum, selling almost 2 or 3 compromised companies per week. What is also interesting about LastCitrix, that he was a very big Infostealer fan. He was using this malware, renting this malware, leaving a feedback. He was in touch with all the developers behind this malware. He was always testing new kind of delivery methods. And when he finished his malicious campaign by infecting different victims, he was doing 2 things. Number 1, he was extracting all the remote accesses and selling them, as you can see here on the screenshot. And the rest of the data, the rest of the logs, maybe he was leaking for free, or maybe he was selling for a little bit less price. What is interesting from that point is this is that LastCitrix was not initial our target. We just wanted to understand what kind of users we can find in our repository that had access to exploit. But when we started to research this domain, we saw LastCitrix. So it was the moment that we said, okay, LastCitrix was a really big Infostealer user, so maybe what happened here, he infected his computer and basically by the accident exposed all his credentials, including his username. So we immediately started our investigation by checking his password file, because again, password file contains all the data from the browser. And from that point, we almost in a few minutes managed to understand all his infrastructure and understand that he was not active on the exploit, he was active on another 10 cybercrime forums. For example, here you can see darknet.ug. Okay, from the name, you probably can understand what's happening there, yes. And obviously exploit, his home base, forums Zloy, and much more. Then we also managed to understand that he's using different kind of 15 cybercrime services to support his malicious activity. For example, dedic.top, place where you can buy servers for shady activity. Places like installs.info, that you can render services to spread the malware, and much more. But this was only the beginning, because if you count the numbers here, 10, 15, and 9, you will get something around 34. But later what we saw, that this log contains additional data, additional hundreds of credentials that are not cybercrime. So what are they? And we understood that his password file includes the data from almost 300 of different companies. And not only the companies, the data from the employees of those companies. And how we know that there's employees? Because there is a match between the same domain in the URL and in the login email. So first we maybe thought that it's a real place where LastCitrix works, but you can't work in 291 places. Maybe you have 2 jobs, maybe you have 5 jobs, but you cannot work in all those places. And then we analyzed again this data, and we understood what is common between all those URLs is that all of them are remote accesses. So basically, all the URLs here are some kind of keywords that can be associated with the remote accesses. I mean about VPN, RDWeb, Danana, Citrix, and some more. And we took one step back and said, okay, what LastCitrix was doing? LastCitrix was selling accesses. From where LastCitrix was getting his accesses? He was getting them from Infostealer infections. And we quickly checked if all this data was previously compromised in the Infostealers, and it was almost all of them were compromised before. And we understood that this is the way how the LastCitrix orchestrated all his victims. This is basically the victim list of the LastCitrix, and he stored all those credentials inside the browser. So basically, at the moment that he infected his computer, he not exposed only his credentials, but he also exposed the list of his victims. And here comes the biggest question. Who is LastCitrix? And we decided not to expose his real identity here, but by examining the autofills, we understood that there is first name, last name, physical address, country, and even the phone number of this gentleman. So basically, this is the story about La Citrix. Just to summarize, we took one username of the threat actor, searched inside the stealer logs, understand that he is compromised, understood his activity on any other cybercrime services, on the way exposed their victim list, and also understood who is the real person behind this avatar. Before we move on, because the second case is related to some kind of little bit more sensitive data, I just want to make this note that we used some data from the FBI official website, and to release this data publicly, we need to speak with them and coordinate. Excuse me.
Coming next,
Excuse me again. After speaking with the FBI, they indicated that there is any law enforcement concerns with the public disclosure of what you're going to see in the next 10 minutes. Second thing, I'm going to drop here some names, but unfortunately, I'm 1000% going to butcher those names. So I apologize in advance for doing that. So ladies and gents, I invite you for our next case because it's going to be related to Raza brothers from Pakistan. So Mujtaba Raza and Mohsin Raza ended up on the FBI wanted list and also on the OFAC list by managing cybercrime service or even cybercrime enterprise called Second Eye Solution. Today their site is down, is not available anymore, but as you know, internet remembers everything. So we used Wayback Machine to see how this site looked in the past. And it looked something like that. I need to admit I like this picture. So Second Eye Solution, they were focusing on the one and single thing. They were focusing on the solution for the cybercriminals to bypass KYC procedures, know your client procedures. So basically they were creating fake documents like passports, driving licenses, bank statement, proof of address, and much, much more. So the threat actors can use this data to then defraud different payment systems, social media accounts, financial institutes, and much more. So one of the ways to contact Second Eye Solution was using email address, support@secondeyesolution.com. And the second way was using Skype account with the name Forwarders. By the way, Second Eye and Forwarders, it's the same. So we already know that there are two gens that clearly associate with this group. But at Hudson Rock, we decided to maybe try to find another people that we can link to this activity. So what we started to do, we started to map their assets. We used OFAC. Again, this is the official US government site that sanctions different entities. And we took from there 4 domains that can be associated with the Second Eye Solution. It's secondeyesolution.ch, second.su.com, and forwarders.com. We took those 4 domains and we searched for them in our repository. Probably if I'm here, we had a match. And we indeed found 2 computers. For the simplicity, I'll call them computer A, infected back in April 2021 with the IP address from the Pakistan, and computer B, infected in October 2020, also with the IP address from Pakistan. By the way, completely different infections, completely different use cases, but 2 of those devices included the domains related to the Second Eye Solution. So we started to check the data on the computer A. And we immediately found the email that we saw a few slides ago, the support@secondeyesolution.com. We also saw emails like info@forwarders and also no reply at Second Eye Solution. And as you know, somebody that has access to emails like info@, support@, or no reply@, it's usually somebody that's on the operational side of this business. Let's call them like a high privileged employee. And take a look also on the URLs here. Indeed, some were involved in some kind of operation because they also had access to the cPanel and also to the WordPress login URL. So we continued this research, and we try to understand where also those email addresses were used outside of their domains. And as you can see, it was used also to manage their registration, also used to manage their hosting, okay? So at this point, we already had some kind of firm vision that this computer indeed belongs to somebody behind the second isolation operation. And if this is not enough, my colleagues that were here before, they were speaking about that the Infostealers, they know how to take the screenshot of the infected device. So when we opened a screenshot from this computer, we discovered that at the moment of the infection, somebody was taking orders from their Skype account. And here comes the biggest question: who is the person behind this computer? So we came to the conclusion that this belongs to a gentleman with the name Backfires Abbas, because we examined the top logins identified on this device, and the first one is related to the backfires.abbas@gmail.com. It was identified 25 times. We also checked the computer name that has the name Backfires and also the username Backfires PC. Later, we checked the autofills and we identified that the first name and the last name belongs to Backfires Abbas. But this is not the end, because we examined the cookies and we discovered a valid cookie session to the Facebook account with the name Backfires Abbas. Here comes the most interesting part. What happened to this account exactly one day that we released the research? He was deleted. Very suspicious. I don't know why it happened. We did the same procedure to the computer B. Okay, I remind you we have two computers here. In the computer B, we also identified credentials related to the forwarders, a little bit less, but again, we saw this email info@forwarders.com, and we did again the same kind of research procedure. And we came to the conclusion that this device belongs to Kamber Jamani or Muhammad Kamber, maybe it's the same name, because the top logins on this device, the top email that was used on this device is mqjamani@gmail.com. Also, the username of this computer is Jamani. And when we took this MQ Jamani as a standalone piece of asset, we managed to identify a GitHub account with this nickname MQ Jamani that with the name Muhammad Kamber, and also the Facebook account from the cookies of Kamber Jamani. What happened to those two accounts one day after we released the research? You guessed it right. They were deleted. I still don't know why. Very suspicious. So from that point, we just decided we have two new entities that are linked to the second solution, but now we also wanted to close the loop to find two already known sanctioned entities to link to the second solution. So we took, again, from the official site, an email that is associated with Mohsin Raza, alimohsin228@gmail.com, and indeed found an evidence of using this username and also the email on the computer A. So by now we clearly understand not only that computer A was used by somebody affiliated with the second solution, but it was used by the Mohsin Raza, the gentleman who is on the FBI most wanted list. And the same goes with the computer B. We found evidence.
The last talk of the day.
I apologize again. So we found also the Mujtaba Raza and his email threatcc@gmail.com. It was used on this computer. So basically, this is how we link all existing personas already wanted to those devices, and also discovered two new personas that maybe law enforcement will consider them to add on the list too. I will close with two slides. And as I like to say, I like to educate a little bit more about this threat. And I like to call this slide, if you see this on your screen, run away as fast as possible. Because this is one of the latest ways how the Infostealer is delivered to this victim. You browse the internet and you can see this fake CAPTCHA. This is completely fake CAPTCHA that will say verify that you're a human. It looks like a CAPTCHA, it feels like a CAPTCHA. People click on that and they received the orders that you need to do. First of all, you need to press Ctrl-R. It will open for you the run window. You need, meanwhile, the site will inject malicious script in your clipboard. Then you will need to do Ctrl-V. It will paste this script, and you need to press the enter. So basically, our brain is trained that when we see the captcha, we need to do some kind of steps, and they guide you through those steps. When you press the enter, it will completely execute full Infostealer automated infection. And my last slide for today, some misconceptions that I hear from different people. First of all, antivirus will protect me. Unfortunately, this is not true. We know that Infostealers, they manage to bypass antiviruses. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's no. But the most interesting here is we have people that they try to execute some kind of file. They get notification from the antivirus that this is a virus. So what they do, they disable the antivirus and run the file again. Second thing is the multi-factor authentication will help me, it will protect me. And this is not true also, because as you saw before, stealers, they know how to take the cookies, and cookies are basically the valid sessions. So at the moment, the threat actor has also the cookies and also the credentials. This is the way how they can bypass the multi-factor authentication. Complex and long passwords will protect me. Unfortunately, this is also not true. Because stealers, they know how to decrypt the password file, so they steal the passwords as is in a plain text. So it doesn't matter if your password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or it's a completely custom generated 55 characters passwords. Again, for the stealers, it's the same because it will get it in plain text always. Apple devices will save me. That's not true. Maybe it was true around 3.5 years ago, but during the last few years, we see Infostealers designed for Mac on the rise, and every 3-4 months, we see another new stealer that is targeting only macOS devices. And the last one, and most important one, it's a wrong cybersecurity mindset. It will not happen to me. It will happen to Citrix. It will happen to dudes from Pakistan, but it will not happen to me. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. It was my pleasure, and I'll be happy to answer some questions.
All right, thank you so much to Mr. Leonid. So now we will open questions to the floor. Does anyone have any questions? You can raise up your hand and I will attend to you. Okay.
Thanks for your talk. I also appreciate the research coming out of Hudson Rock and some of the tools you guys have made available for the community. It's really good. My question is maybe beyond the research that you've presented today. I understand through some posts from Elon that you guys have identified some sensitive areas across different governments and institutions around the world where Infostealer has made an impact to them. I'm just curious in your own research as well at the organization where you have identified something that you're like, oh shit, that's really bad. And if you would be willing to just share what it is and what type of impact that could, downstream impact that could lead to, since this is a typical initial access vector. Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely, so thank you very much for your question. Definitely we see this oh shit moment almost every day because again, this malware can hit anyone. Okay, because in the way that this is delivered, it can hit the big company, government companies, and yeah. So I think one of the interesting kind of login URLs that we discover is something that's related to the admin accesses, like again, VPN or something like that, and also something that's related to management tools like Jira or Slack that during the last 6 or 7 months, we saw few incidents that threat actor, they don't attack the company directly, they hijack the Jira account or the Slack account, and from their pivot, they impersonate a typical employee and just trick other employees maybe to give them access or send them information, something like that. But as you said, those oh shit moments, maybe you need to censor this later, it's every day, yeah, it's unfortunately.
So, as a follow-up, are you only seeing information stealing logs coming and originating from systems in Western-centric or allied countries, or are you also seeing impact to Russian-based systems or Chinese-based systems as well?
Okay, so the answer is from every place. Stealer logs, by design, they're not supposed to run in post-Soviet countries, for example, Russia and Belarus. It's not always true, okay? They sometimes work there. So we also have the data also from the Russia, also from the Belarus, also from China. We even have 6 infections from North Korea. Don't ask me how it happened, okay? Yeah, they designed not to work in specific countries, but they do. Yeah.
All right.
Hi again. Thanks for the talk. That was really informative. I think we've seen a lot of Infostealers in the news. I think most recently with the MNS breach, Marks and Spencer breach involving, I think it was Tata Consultancy. And then Lumma C2C Stealers got taken down and then they basically closed shop. But I'm sure there'll be more coming up. You know, there's still Red Line and all those. So as an organization, what are some of the, I don't know, information or intel we can share with the different teams for us to help combat this, and especially related to third-party partners?
Okay, I just want to explain why this Infostealer issue is so big issue today. Yeah, because for the threat actors, they don't need to develop this malware. Just they go to the dark web forums, they rent this malware as $200 a month, and that's all. They're ready to go. For your question, as I understand, you want to ask like how the best practices, how you can protect the company, or yeah. So the best way how you can protect your company is simply to show to your employees what can be the result if you will you execute the malware of this computer. It's not enough. It starts with and begins with it starts and ends with the educational cybersecurity employees. And you should not say to them, don't click on the link because it's not bad. You need to show them what can happen. And you also need to explain them the known delivery methods. I show here only one, there is another 5, but everything here starts and begins with the cybersecurity education, okay? Because you can invest millions in cybersecurity products, but when the employee disables the antivirus to run cheats for Fortnite, all your investment of millions of dollars in EDRs, threat intelligence services, it's a waste, yeah? So only the proper and good cybersecurity education, it's my opinion.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, okay.
So for my sins, I was the head of threat intelligence for a crypto company for a while, and we saw a ton of Infostealed accounts for sale on dark forums for the user base. Back 3 or 4 years ago, the value of a 2-day-old Google account and cookies and passwords, etc., was $25. How has that changed?
Okay, it's a good question. I just can say that we source the Infostealers a little bit different way, so we don't. Okay, I'll answer it a little bit different. It's when this data from the moment of the infection until it's sold on the dark web pass through different kinds of different kinds of steps. Okay, so usually there's guys that infect the computers, then they resell this data for people that are taking out from this data or initial accesses or data from the crypto companies, and then there is few other steps, and then it reached like the final consumer with this kind of data, yeah? As far as they know, as far as they see today, the crypto accounts, because they are mostly, let's say, interesting accounts, they still trade at around a couple of tens of dollars per account, yeah, 2025. Again, this depends, but there is something different. You have a group of threat actors that will say, give me all those accounts. If you have, for example, 5,000 of those accounts, I will monetize them, and from money that I managed to extract, I will give you %. So it's even not for per user, they say, I will give you it's a partnership. Yeah, I will give you something to work with. You do your job. If you manage to extract from like $1 million US, give me part of that. So there's two ways, yeah?
All right. Is there any other questions from the floor? All right, so if that's, okay.
Hello, good afternoon. I really appreciate the data that you have shared with us, but with the threats going on nowadays, we can see that sometimes it's not about those folks who are triggering against the victims. Sometimes they can be operating unintended in scam center, etc. Do you have such visibility? Like for example, we know that there's famous scam centers in South Asia or whatsoever. But some folks are really very skilled, and they are not scammers, but they are operating based on their technical capabilities willingly. Some are unwilling. Like for example, some folks get caught up in scam center, and they know that these are the profile that folks with the skill set, and we can use them to propagate malware, etc. Are you able to differentiate your data from such, the professionals and the scam victims, whereby you use their capability to do bad things? Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So as I understand, just please correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking if also those scam gangs using Infostealers to, yeah. So it's less scalable for them. We're speaking about the scam call centers, most likely, yes, so they need to call to somebody. Definitely they have some kind of their own tools, how they can access somebody else's computer, but it's too much time consuming to call somebody and convince somebody else to click on the link or execute the file just for one infection. As far as I know, there is no scam call centers that deliver this malware as part of their activity, okay? Because there is a much more efficient way to do that. Let's say you rent this malware, you pay for somebody else $200 US, and then you simply buy a malware campaign, and your reach out is not for a few people that will answer your phone. Your reach out is for millions of people that can click on the link. So for your question, we are not aware that the scam call centers use Infostealers, manually by calling the people. It's simply less scalable and most likely for them less profitable, yeah, to do that.